Beloved of the Lord, let us dive deeply into what it means to begin your day by meeting with God before anything else. So often, we rush from the moment we wake up straight into the demands of life, checking our phones, emails, messages, or simply reacting to the pressures around us. But have you ever stopped to consider the difference it would make if your very first moment each morning was spent in intentional communion with God? When you meet with God first, before any other voice, before any external circumstance can demand your attention, you are placing yourself in a position of spiritual authority. You are saying, consciously and intentionally, that the Lord of your life will lead, guide, and shape your day, rather than allowing the world, stress, or even your own fears to take the reins. Can you feel the power in that? I want you to take a moment right now and ask yourself, how would my day change if I chose to hear from God first instead of everyone else? Meeting with God first is not simply about saying a quick prayer before you run out the door. It is a deliberate, focused encounter with your Creator, where your heart, mind, and spirit are fully aligned to His presence. It's an opportunity to listen, to receive direction, and to set your intentions under the guidance of heaven. Think about it. The first thoughts you entertain in the morning have the power to shape your entire day. If you start with worry, doubt, or confusion, these emotions can cloud your judgment and affect your interactions. But when you start with God, inviting His presence to saturate your mind, body, and spirit, you are effectively creating a spiritual blueprint for the hours ahead. You are declaring that nothing, not a circumstance, not a relationship, not a challenge, will control your day without His permission. Can you imagine waking up tomorrow knowing that God has already gone before you, preparing your way, and lining up every step according to His plan? This practice also strengthens your relationship with God. When you consistently meet Him first, you cultivate intimacy with the One who knows you completely and loves you unconditionally. You begin to recognize His voice, discern His guidance, and understand the subtle ways He communicates direction and protection. Your mornings become sacred, not rushed or reactive. This is a shift from living in survival mode to living in divine alignment. Ask yourself, am I willing to pause my own agenda and honor God with the first fruits of my day? This is not just a spiritual exercise. It is a lifestyle that positions you for favor, clarity, and victory. Meeting with God first also equips you with spiritual armor for the challenges that are certain to arise. Life is unpredictable, filled with situations that can frustrate, overwhelm, or discourage you. But when you meet God before the chaos begins, you are fortified with His peace, wisdom, and discernment. You can navigate your responsibilities with a calm confidence because your perspective has been aligned with heaven, not limited by earthly pressures. Have you ever noticed that people who start their day grounded in prayer and reflection seem to handle challenges with greater grace and composure? That is not coincidence. It is the power of meeting with God first. Furthermore, starting your day with God allows you to set the tone for your thoughts, words, and actions. You become intentional rather than reactive. By inviting Him into the earliest moments of your morning, you establish a rhythm of obedience, faith, and expectancy. It becomes easier to prioritize what truly matters and to act with purpose throughout your day. Your interactions, decisions, and responses are filtered through the wisdom of God rather than through fear, stress, or impatience. Have you ever considered how much more productive, peaceful, and fruitful your day could be if you aligned it first with God's guidance? Every choice, every conversation, every task carries the potential to either reflect or resist divine influence. And when God is first, the alignment is automatic. This principle also transforms your heart and mindset. When you dedicate the first moments of your day to God, you cultivate gratitude, humility, and expectation. You remind yourself that He is in control and that your life is part of a greater plan. This awareness reshapes how you view challenges, setbacks, and opportunities. Even before you encounter others, you have positioned yourself to operate from a place of spiritual authority, confidence, and peace. Can you feel the difference in your spirit when you start your day by seeking God's face rather than your own solutions? Meeting with God first is also a form of worship, an acknowledgement that He deserves the first place in your life. It is the daily offering of your time, energy, and attention, recognizing that everything flows from Him. In doing so, you invite His power to flow into every aspect of your life. Your decisions, your relationships, your work, and your personal growth. This intentional choice sets a pattern for spiritual excellence and discipline, reminding you that the priority of your life is not what you do, but who you walk with. Take a moment now to reflect. How often do I let the world dictate the start of my day instead of God? When you meet with God first, you also activate the law of first fruits in your spiritual life. Just as the first fruits of the harvest were set aside for God, dedicating the first moments of your day honors Him and invites His blessing over everything else. This act of faith demonstrates trust, obedience, and expectancy. It is not just a ritual, it is a powerful declaration that your day belongs to God and that you are willing to let Him lead. Every step you take after this meeting is under His direction, ensuring that you walk in alignment with His divine will. Meeting with God first is a spiritual strategy that produces tangible results. Your day becomes smoother, your decisions clearer, your emotions steadier, and your life increasingly aligned with purpose. It is a simple but transformative discipline that positions you to experience favor, provision, protection, and peace in every area of your life. Have you felt that longing in your heart for a day that unfolds with ease, clarity, and divine favor? This is the secret. When God is first, the rest falls into place. The choice is yours each morning. You can either rush into the world carrying worry, distraction, and uncertainty, or you can pause, meet with God first, and let Him set the tone for everything that follows. This moment, though brief, has the power to change outcomes, open doors, and align you with your destiny. Meeting with God first is not about finding time. It's about prioritizing what truly matters. Are you ready to commit to this daily encounter? To let the Creator of the universe guide your day before you even step out the door. Inviting divine order into every part of your morning is a transformative practice that can shift the trajectory of your entire day. Many people wake up and immediately jump into their routines, often overwhelmed by tasks, responsibilities, and distractions. But what if the first moments of your day were dedicated to intentionally asking God to bring order, clarity, and purpose into every aspect of your life? When you invite divine order, you are not merely hoping things will go smoothly. You are actively positioning yourself under God's authority and guidance. Have you ever noticed how chaotic mornings can set the tone for the rest of your day? What if that chaos could be replaced by divine orchestration? Divine order begins with recognizing that God is a God of structure, precision, and timing. He sees the bigger picture that we often miss. While our human perspective may feel cluttered or uncertain, God knows the path that leads to our highest good. Inviting Him into your morning means allowing His wisdom to direct your steps, your decisions, and your interactions. It's a moment of surrender, a declaration that you trust Him to align everything according to His plan. Ask yourself, how much more productive and peaceful would my day be if God arranged the order of my priorities before I even attempted to tackle them? When you invite divine order, it impacts every area of your life. Your thoughts, emotions, relationships, work, and personal goals can all be harmonized under God's guidance. You are no longer reacting to circumstances. Instead, You are responding from a place of divine alignment. This means that even in the midst of challenges or unexpected interruptions, you can maintain focus and clarity because your foundation is rooted in God's order rather than chaos. Have you ever experienced a day that seemed to fall perfectly into place, almost as if unseen hands were guiding every step? That is the result of divine order at work. Divine order also protects your time and energy. So often, we allow our mornings to be hijacked by distractions, phones, social media, unnecessary tasks, or even other people's priorities. By inviting God to orchestrate your morning, you create a space where His agenda takes precedence over the world's noise. You start your day with intentionality rather than reaction, which increases your efficiency, productivity, and peace of mind. Think about this. What would change if the first hour of your day was completely surrendered to God's guidance rather than consumed by random interruptions? This practice strengthens your spiritual sensitivity as well. When you consistently invite divine order, you begin to notice subtle nudges, impressions, and confirmations from God. You learn to discern what truly matters and what is merely a distraction. Your decisions become more aligned with His will, and your life starts to reflect His purpose in practical, tangible ways. Are you paying attention to the quiet whispers of God in the early hours of your day? Or are you rushing ahead without listening? Recognizing and responding to these divine cues can prevent mistakes, reduce stress, and open doors that you may not have even known existed. Inviting divine order is also an act of faith. It requires trusting that God's plan is better than your own, even when you cannot yet see the outcome. This trust reshapes your mindset, transforming anxiety, worry, or impatience into peace and confidence. You begin to live from a perspective of expectancy rather than fear, knowing that every step of your day is aligned with heaven. How much freedom would you feel if you knew that your day was being directed by the Creator of the universe? This is not wishful thinking. It is spiritual strategy. Moreover, divine order brings balance. In our modern lives, it is easy to feel pulled in multiple directions, trying to manage competing demands without a clear framework. Inviting God into your morning creates a central point of focus, a divine rhythm that organizes your priorities and ensures that what matters most receives your attention first. This balance is not merely about efficiency. It is about living in alignment with God's purpose and walking in the fullness of His provision. Ask yourself, are my daily actions aligned with my higher purpose, or am I just reacting to what seems urgent at the moment? This practice also impacts your emotional and mental well-being. Chaos, indecision, and disorganization can create stress and drain your energy. When you invite divine order, you release tension because you are no longer carrying the burden of figuring everything out on your own. God's presence in the morning sets a tone of calm, clarity, and confidence that permeates your thoughts, words, and actions. Even when unexpected situations arise, you remain grounded because you are anchored in His divine orchestration. Can you feel the difference in your spirit when you start your day aligned with God rather than fragmented by the world? Inviting divine order into your morning is also a powerful act of stewardship. You are acknowledging that your time, energy, and focus are gifts from God, and you are choosing to dedicate them wisely. By starting with intention and guidance, you maximize your potential for success, productivity, and fulfillment. You set the stage for your relationships, work, and personal goals to flow smoothly and efficiently, avoiding unnecessary friction and wasted effort. Reflect for a moment. How often do you spend the first part of your day reacting to life rather than directing it under God's wisdom? This principle is simple but transformative. When you consistently invite divine order into your mornings, you begin to notice patterns of favor, alignment, and breakthrough emerging naturally. Your day flows more smoothly, your decisions become clearer, and your life takes on a rhythm that reflects God's design. It is not a temporary fix, but a lasting lifestyle that cultivates peace, purpose, and productivity. By choosing to surrender the start of your day to God, you unlock a level of clarity and success that is only possible under His guidance. Inviting divine order also inspires intentional action throughout your day. When your priorities are set according to God's wisdom, you move with confidence and purpose. Every task, interaction, and decision becomes part of a larger, divine plan. You are not just completing tasks. You are fulfilling destiny. Are you ready to start your mornings in a way that positions you for excellence, divine favor, and breakthrough? This simple, daily act of inviting God's order can revolutionize how you experience every hour, every decision, and every encounter in your life. By beginning with divine order, you are also cultivating a life of expectancy. You start to anticipate God's guidance, protection, and blessings in ways that were previously unnoticed. This expectancy fuels your faith, strengthens your resolve, and fills your heart with peace. The early moments of your day become sacred, intentional, and powerful, setting the tone for everything that follows. When you make inviting divine order a priority, you are no longer at the mercy of life's unpredictability. Instead, you are walking in the confidence that God has already arranged the steps you are about to take. Aligning your decisions and actions with God's wisdom is one of the most powerful practices you can adopt to transform your life. Every day, from the moment you wake up, you are faced with countless choices, some small, some monumental, that shape the trajectory of your life. Often, we rely solely on our own understanding, our instincts, or even advice from others, but without divine alignment, our decisions can lead to confusion, setbacks, and missed opportunities. Have you ever noticed how even well-intentioned choices can sometimes produce unexpected challenges? What if there were a way to approach every decision with clarity, confidence, and certainty, knowing that you were walking in God's perfect wisdom? That is exactly what happens when your actions and choices are aligned with His guidance. Aligning with God's wisdom begins with intentional listening. It is not enough to simply pray in a rushed or casual manner. You must take the time to hear His voice, discern His leading, and seek confirmation through Scripture, prayer, and the prompting of the Holy Spirit. When you do this, you are creating a partnership with heaven. You are acknowledging that God's perspective is infinitely higher than your own, and that His knowledge of the future is far beyond what you can comprehend. Ask yourself, how often do I pause to truly seek God's wisdom before making a significant choice, rather than moving forward based on my understanding alone? When your decisions are guided by God, you experience a profound sense of peace, even in situations that would normally cause anxiety or fear. There is a quiet confidence that comes from knowing that your steps are ordered, that you are walking in alignment with a higher purpose, and that the outcome is already under divine supervision. This does not mean that challenges will vanish, but it does mean that you are equipped to navigate them with clarity, discernment, and strength. How different would your life feel if every major decision carried that sense of divine assurance? Aligning your actions with God's wisdom also impacts your relationships. Decisions are not made in isolation. They affect family, friends, colleagues, and even strangers in ways we may not immediately see. When God is involved in your decision-making, your words, choices, and responses reflect His love, justice, and integrity. You are less likely to act impulsively, react in anger, or make decisions that compromise your values. Instead, your actions become intentional, thoughtful, and rooted in principles that bring peace rather than conflict. Consider this. How would your interactions change if God guided every response, choice, or conversation you engaged in today? This alignment also empowers your professional and personal growth. Career moves, business decisions, And creative endeavors all benefit when guided by God's wisdom. Instead of moving hastily or making choices based on fear or external pressure, you operate from a position of strategic clarity. Every step you take is more likely to result in success because it is supported by the principles of divine order. You are not simply working hard, you are working smart under the supervision of heaven. Have you experienced a time when a choice made in faith opened doors that human reasoning alone could never have unlocked? That is the power of aligning with God. When you commit to this alignment, you are also cultivating spiritual discernment. Over time, you begin to recognize patterns, promptings, and confirmations from God that guide your life in subtle but profound ways. Your intuition becomes sharper, your judgment clearer, and your ability to distinguish between truth and distraction stronger. This spiritual sensitivity allows you to make better decisions in every area of your life, from finances to relationships to personal growth. Ask yourself, am I willing to slow down, listen, and trust God's direction, even when it challenges my own desires or plans? Aligning your decisions with God's wisdom also brings freedom from regret. How many times have you looked back and wished you had made a different choice? By consistently seeking God's guidance, you minimize the risk of regret because your steps are intentional, informed, and spirit-led. Even when outcomes are unexpected, you can walk with confidence, knowing that you acted according to divine instruction rather than impulsive reasoning. This brings a level of peace and contentment that is rare in a world filled with uncertainty. Can you imagine waking up each day without the burden of doubt or second guessing your choices? This practice also reshapes your mindset and priorities. When God's wisdom directs your actions, you begin to focus on what truly matters rather than being distracted by trivial or temporary concerns. Your energy, attention, and effort are aligned with eternal principles, ensuring that your life produces lasting fruit. You begin to recognize opportunities and challenges as part of a bigger picture, and you make decisions that reflect vision, strategy, and purpose. How much more effective and fulfilled could your day be if every choice reflected divine alignment rather than human impulse? Moreover, aligning with God's wisdom teaches patience and trust. Life often tempts us to rush decisions, settle for less, or act in haste. But when you seek God's guidance first, you cultivate a mindset of waiting for the right timing, trusting that His plan is perfect, and resisting the urge to act prematurely. Patience becomes a spiritual discipline, and trust becomes a natural response to God's faithfulness. Ask yourself, am I willing to trust the unseen, delay gratification, and allow God to direct my path before I act? Aligning your actions with God's wisdom also empowers you to influence others positively. Decisions made under divine guidance ripple outward, touching the lives of people around you in ways that human reasoning alone cannot achieve. Your words, behavior, and choices become a reflection of God's character, and others are inspired, encouraged, and uplifted by your example. Your life becomes a testimony of what happens when someone consistently chooses divine alignment over self-reliance. Finally, this alignment transforms your long-term vision. By making decisions according to God's wisdom, you are not just responding to immediate needs. You are building a life that fulfills your purpose and destiny. You are creating a legacy of faithfulness, wisdom, and discernment that will impact generations. Every choice becomes a brick in the foundation of a life lived intentionally under divine guidance. How different would your life be if each decision, big or small, reflected the wisdom of God rather than human impulse? Through aligning your decisions and actions with God's wisdom, you step into a life of clarity, peace, and divine favor. You are no longer tossed by uncertainty or limited by fear. Instead, you walk with confidence, purpose, and authority, knowing that every step you take is guided by the Creator of the universe. This practice not only changes outcomes, but transforms your character, refines your priorities, and empowers you to live a life of true impact. Are you ready to let God guide your choices today and every day so that your life reflects His wisdom in every decision you make? Releasing anxiety and confusion by resting in God's presence is a powerful spiritual practice that can completely transform the way you experience each day. Life is full of challenges, uncertainties, and pressures that can easily weigh down your heart and mind. Often, we try to manage everything on our own, relying on our strength, intellect, and resources, and this leads to stress, frustration, and mental fatigue. But when you learn to release anxiety and confusion and instead rest in God's presence, you are choosing to exchange your human limitations for His divine peace and clarity. Have you ever felt the heaviness of carrying the weight of your day before it even begins? Imagine what would happen if you handed all of that over to God and allowed Him to bear it for you. Resting in God's presence begins with an intentional pause. Instead of immediately reacting to the chaos around you, you take a moment to quiet your heart and mind and acknowledge His sovereignty. This is more than a casual prayer. It is a conscious act of surrender. You are telling God, I trust you with the burdens I cannot handle, the questions I cannot answer, and the circumstances I cannot control. When you do this, you are creating space for His peace to enter and for clarity to replace confusion. Ask yourself, how often do I try to navigate life alone instead of leaning on God's strength and guidance from the very start of my day? Anxiety often stems from trying to control the uncontrollable. We become consumed with what ifs and endless possibilities, worrying about outcomes we cannot predict. Confusion arises when our thoughts, emotions, and priorities are scattered, leaving us feeling unsettled and overwhelmed. But when you rest in God's presence, you are reminded that He is in control of every detail, every situation, and every outcome. You do not need to have all the answers, you only need to trust Him. Consider this: what would change if you approached your day knowing that the Creator of the universe is orchestrating everything on your behalf? Resting in God's presence also strengthens your spiritual resilience. When challenges arise, as they inevitably will, you are able to respond with calmness and clarity rather than panic or frustration. Your mind is aligned with His truth, allowing you to see solutions where others only see problems. Your heart is anchored in His promises, giving you the courage to face difficulties without fear. Have you ever noticed that people who consistently draw near to God seem unshakable, even in the midst of storms? That stability is the result of resting in His presence rather than relying on their own understanding. This practice also nurtures your emotional well-being. Anxiety and confusion are not just mental states. They affect your emotions, your energy, and your relationships. When you release these burdens to God, you free yourself from emotional exhaustion and tension. You can experience joy, patience, and compassion more fully because your heart is no longer weighed down by unnecessary stress. How different would your interactions be if your heart was centered on God's peace rather than the chaos around you? Resting in God's presence requires faith and intentionality. It is a deliberate choice to focus on His character, promises, and power rather than the circumstances that threaten to overwhelm you. This involves speaking truth over your mind and emotions, declaring God's sovereignty, and meditating on Scripture that reminds you of His faithfulness. The more consistently you practice this, the more natural it becomes to turn to God first whenever anxiety or confusion arises. Ask yourself, am I willing to make resting in God a priority before reacting to life's challenges? This spiritual discipline also reshapes your perspective. When you allow God's presence to permeate your mind, confusion begins to dissipate and decisions become clearer. Situations that once felt impossible suddenly have solutions, and challenges that felt heavy become manageable. You gain insight, wisdom, and discernment as you allow His presence to guide your thoughts and actions. Your mind becomes a place of peace rather than turmoil, and your spirit is fortified to handle whatever the day brings. Have you noticed how clarity often comes when you stop trying to figure everything out on your own and simply sit in God's presence? Resting in God's presence also cultivates gratitude and contentment. Anxiety often thrives on focusing on what is lacking or uncertain, while confusion grows when we dwell on disorder or unpredictability. By intentionally dwelling in God's presence, you shift your attention from what is missing or unknown to what is secure and promised. Gratitude replaces worry, and faith replaces fear. Ask yourself, am I more focused on God's goodness and provision, or am I consumed by the uncertainties of life? This practice strengthens your relationship with God. The more time you spend resting in Him, the more you become aware of His constant nearness, His love, and His care. You begin to trust Him not just in theory, but in experience. This intimacy allows you to face life's uncertainties with confidence, knowing that you are not alone and that His presence accompanies you in every moment. Have you taken time to experience the comfort and reassurance that comes from being fully present with God, even for just a few quiet minutes each morning? Releasing anxiety and confusion in God's presence also impacts your productivity and effectiveness. When your mind is at peace, you are able to think more clearly, make better decisions, and act with purpose. Your energy is focused on solutions and actions rather than being drained by worry and indecision. Tasks that once felt overwhelming become manageable because your perspective has shifted from limitation to possibility. Imagine how much more you could accomplish if your mind and spirit were aligned with God's peace rather than clouded by anxiety. Finally, this practice sets a tone for the entire day. Starting the morning by resting in God's presence ensures that you approach every encounter, every decision, and every task with calmness, clarity, and confidence. It transforms how you respond to challenges, how you relate to others, and how you navigate the complexities of life. By consistently choosing to release anxiety and confusion into God's hands, you create a lifestyle of peace, faith, and divine alignment. Can you feel the difference in your spirit when you start your day grounded in His presence rather than scattered by worry? Resting in God's presence is not passive. It is active surrender. It is choosing to focus your mind, calm your emotions, and trust your heart to the one who holds all things together. It is the antidote to stress, the solution to confusion, and the pathway to peace. By cultivating this habit, you are equipping yourself to face life with confidence, clarity, and resilience, knowing that nothing is outside of God's control and nothing can shake the peace He provides. Trusting God to set the tone, pace, and outcome of your day is one of the most powerful spiritual disciplines you can practice. Every morning presents a blank canvas, and how you start your day often dictates the flow, energy, and effectiveness of everything that follows. So many people wake up and immediately dive into their schedules, reacting to emails, messages, chores, or responsibilities, without taking a moment to intentionally surrender the day to God. But when you place your trust in Him to lead, guide, and orchestrate your day, you are stepping into a life of divine alignment and supernatural favor. Have you ever wondered what it would feel like to go through your day fully confident that every step, every encounter, and every decision is ordered by heaven? Trusting God begins with surrender. It is a deliberate act of letting go of control, acknowledging that while you may have plans, His plans are higher and perfect. Many people struggle with the idea of surrender because it feels like relinquishing power or control. But the truth is, surrender is not weakness. It is the most powerful position you can take. When you trust God to set the tone of your day, you are declaring that He is the authority over your time, energy, and priorities. Ask yourself, am I willing to start today by letting God define what matters most instead of trying to dictate it myself? Setting the tone of your day with God transforms your mindset. Your thoughts, emotions, and intentions become aligned with His presence rather than external pressures or circumstances. Instead of reacting with anxiety, frustration, or fear, you begin to approach your day with calmness, clarity, and expectancy. Your first moments with God shape how you interpret challenges and opportunities, influencing your decisions, behavior, and interactions. Have you noticed how your attitude and mood in the morning can ripple through every encounter and decision for the rest of the day? Trusting God to set the pace of your day also brings order and efficiency. Many people operate in a constant state of rush, juggling multiple tasks without a clear rhythm or sense of priority. But when you invite God to determine your pace, He helps you move with purpose and intentionality rather than haste. He aligns your energy with the right tasks at the right time, ensuring that you are not overextended or misdirected. This divine pacing prevents burnout, reduces mistakes, and ensures that your efforts produce maximum results. Ask yourself, how much more productive and peaceful would my day be if God determined the rhythm and flow of each hour? Allowing God to set the outcome of your day cultivates faith and expectancy. Instead of worrying about results or fearing failure, you operate from a position of confidence, knowing that God is orchestrating events according to His perfect plan. You are no longer at the mercy of circumstances or human limitations. Rather, you are walking in divine favor and alignment. When you trust Him with outcomes, even challenges that seem insurmountable can become opportunities for growth, breakthrough, and testimony. Have you experienced moments when a situation seemed hopeless, only to realize later that God had been working behind the scenes all along? Trusting God also empowers you to make better decisions throughout the day. Decisions are often the source of stress, confusion, and regret when we rely solely on our understanding. But when you begin your day by inviting God's wisdom into your choices, you operate from a place of discernment rather than impulse. Every decision, big or small, becomes guided by His insight, ensuring that your actions align with His will and purpose. Ask yourself, am I willing to pause, seek God's guidance, and trust His direction before making decisions, instead of relying solely on my own judgment? This trust transforms your relationships as well. When you allow God to lead, your interactions, your words, responses, and attitudes are infused with His grace, patience, and understanding. You are less reactive, more compassionate, and better able to handle conflict or misunderstanding. People are naturally drawn to the peace and wisdom that emanate from someone who is walking in divine alignment. Have you noticed how interactions with calm, centered, and spirit-led individuals often leave you feeling encouraged and supported? Trusting God to set the tone, pace, and outcome also strengthens your resilience. Life is unpredictable and challenges are inevitable. But when you walk in faith, knowing that God has already gone before you, obstacles do not derail you. You remain steady, confident, and purposeful, even when circumstances seem chaotic. This resilience is a direct result of surrendering control and relying on God's timing and guidance. Ask yourself, how would my day change if I truly believed that nothing could happen outside of God's sovereign plan? Trusting God also shifts your focus from worry to worship. Anxiety often arises from a sense of uncertainty or lack of control. But when you consciously invite God to lead your day, you are reminded of His power, presence, and provision. Your attention moves from problems to possibilities, from fear to faith, and from stress to gratitude. each moment becomes an opportunity to experience His guidance and peace. How often do you begin your day in worry rather than resting in the assurance that God is orchestrating every detail? This practice cultivates spiritual sensitivity and discernment. As you trust God with the flow of your day, you become more aware of His promptings, confirmations, and instructions. Small decisions, encounters, and opportunities are illuminated by His guidance, helping you to navigate life with clarity and confidence. You begin to recognize patterns, hear His voice more clearly, and respond with wisdom rather than instinct. Ask yourself, am I listening for God's guidance? Or am I rushing ahead based on my own understanding? Trusting God with the outcome of your day also enhances your sense of peace and contentment. When you know that the Creator of the universe is in control, you are free from the burden of trying to manipulate every situation, fix every problem, or control every result. This freedom allows you to engage fully in each moment, confident that God's hand is at work behind the scenes. You experience a deep, abiding peace that cannot be shaken by circumstances, knowing that every step is guided by divine wisdom. By trusting God to set the tone, pace, and outcome of your day, you also create a life of intentionality and purpose. You are no longer drifting through life, reacting to events and external pressures. Instead, you are walking in alignment with heaven, where your time, energy, and actions produce maximum impact. Every hour becomes an opportunity to operate in divine favor, to make decisions with clarity, and to influence others positively. Have you ever considered how much more meaningful and effective your day could be if you allowed God to orchestrate every detail? Trusting God in this way is not passive. It is an active, deliberate choice to surrender, seek, and follow His direction. It requires faith, patience, and discipline, but the rewards are immeasurable. Your days are transformed from ordinary to extraordinary. Your decisions become infused with divine wisdom, and your life begins to reflect the peace, order, and favor that comes from walking in alignment with the Creator of the universe. When you allow God to set the tone, pace, and outcome, you are not just surviving, you are thriving under His perfect guidance. Speaking favor, protection, and peace over yourself is a deliberate spiritual practice that has the power to transform your life from the inside out. Every day we face invisible forces, pressures, and circumstances that can either build us up or tear us down. Often, people rely solely on external solutions, hard work, strategy, or human relationships, without realizing the profound effect of intentionally declaring God's favor, protection, and peace over themselves. These declarations are not merely positive thinking, they are powerful spiritual alignments with God's promises that set the tone for your day, shape your perspective, and influence outcomes in ways that human effort alone cannot achieve. Have you ever noticed how people who consistently speak life over themselves seem to navigate challenges more gracefully and attract opportunities more readily than those who don't? Speaking favor over yourself is essentially inviting God's blessing into every area of your life. Favor is the supernatural edge that opens doors, aligns circumstances, and positions you for breakthrough. When you declare favor over your work, your relationships, and your plans, you are aligning with God's providence, trusting Him to smooth your path and bring the right connections and opportunities. Have you ever experienced moments when everything seemed to come together effortlessly, almost as if unseen hands were guiding your way? That is favor at work. By proactively speaking it over yourself, you are cooperating with heaven to bring those moments into reality more consistently. Protection is another crucial aspect of these declarations. Life is unpredictable, filled with challenges, threats, and opposition that can come in many forms: physical, emotional, spiritual, or relational. When you speak protection over yourself, you are invoking God's shield to cover every aspect of your being. This is not merely about avoiding danger, but about maintaining your integrity, peace of mind, and spiritual strength even when trials come. Protection aligns you with God's power, creating a divine buffer that surrounds your life and guides your steps away from harm and into blessing. Ask yourself, am I actively inviting God's protection over my life today, or am I leaving myself vulnerable to unnecessary stress, conflict, or attack? Peace is the third component, and it is often the most transformative. Peace is not the absence of challenges, but the presence of God's calm in the midst of them. By speaking peace over yourself, you are anchoring your heart and mind in God's presence rather than allowing fear, doubt, or anxiety to dictate your responses. Peace allows you to think clearly, act wisely, and interact with others from a place of calm authority rather than reactive emotion. Have you noticed how some people seem unshakable even in stressful circumstances? That is the result of consistently claiming God's peace and letting it guide their lives. The act of speaking these declarations is not passive. It requires intention and faith. Each time you declare favor, protection, and peace over yourself, you are reminding your spirit, mind, and body that God is in control and that you are under His care. It is a verbal and spiritual alignment with His promises, reinforcing your identity as a beloved child of God and a co-operator in His plans. Your words carry authority, and when spoken with faith, they activate spiritual realities that influence both seen and unseen realms. Ask yourself, how often do I intentionally use my words to align myself with God's promises rather than speaking out of fear or doubt? Speaking favor over yourself also impacts how you perceive and engage with opportunities. Favor opens doors that might otherwise remain closed, aligns you with the right people, and ensures that your efforts bear fruit. It increases your influence and amplifies your ability to make a positive impact in your sphere of life. By declaring favor, you are essentially positioning yourself in alignment with divine timing and provision, allowing God to orchestrate outcomes that go beyond human expectation. Have you experienced moments when the right opportunity came at the perfect time? That is the power of favor being activated in your life. Declaring protection over yourself strengthens your resilience and confidence. Life will inevitably present obstacles, conflicts, and challenges, but when you speak protection, you are equipping yourself spiritually to navigate them with courage and wisdom. Protection reminds you that you are not alone in your battles, and that God is actively intervening to guard your life, your mind, and your spirit. This kind of divine security allows you to step forward boldly, knowing that even in the midst of adversity, God's power surrounds and sustains you. Ask yourself, am I walking in awareness of God's protection, or am I allowing fear to dictate my actions? Speaking peace over yourself transforms your daily experiences by stabilizing your thoughts and emotions. When you begin your day with a declaration of peace, your mind is less likely to be overwhelmed by worry, doubt, or negativity. Your emotions are anchored in God's presence, allowing you to respond to challenges with grace, patience, and clarity. Peace affects how you relate to others, how you make decisions, and how you approach tasks. It permeates your entire being, creating a foundation for a productive, joyful, and spiritually empowered life. How different would your day be if you approached it with God's peace, rather than reacting to every stress or disturbance around you? This practice also builds spiritual authority. Speaking favor, protection, and peace over yourself is an exercise of the authority God has given you as His child. You are declaring alignment with His will, standing in His promises, and actively participating in the manifestation of His plan for your life. Your words become instruments of influence, shaping not only your reality, but also the atmosphere around you. People are naturally drawn to the calm, confident, and spiritually anchored presence of someone who consistently speaks life over themselves. Ask yourself, how can my daily declarations impact not just me, but those around me? Consistency is key in this practice. It is not a one-time statement, but a lifestyle of speaking life into your circumstances and identity. The more frequently you declare favor, protection, and peace, the more natural it becomes to live from these spiritual realities. Over time, you will notice a shift in how you navigate challenges, respond to opportunities, and experience your own sense of empowerment. Your life begins to reflect the presence, power, and promises of God in tangible ways. This practice also shapes your mindset. When you consistently speak favor, protection, and peace over yourself, your mind becomes attuned to possibilities rather than limitations, solutions rather than problems, and hope rather than fear. You develop a perspective that sees challenges as opportunities for growth and setbacks as stepping stones toward your destiny. This mental and spiritual alignment ensures that you operate in faith rather than doubt, in hope rather than despair, and in confidence rather than insecurity. Speaking favor, protection, and peace over yourself is a declaration of faith, a spiritual discipline, and a lifestyle that aligns your life with God's purpose. It empowers you to navigate your day with confidence, clarity, and calm authority, while also positioning you to experience divine provision, supernatural favor, and the sustaining power of God's peace. It transforms your perspective, strengthens your spirit, and influences your environment in ways that human effort alone cannot achieve. By making these declarations a regular part of your life, you are intentionally cooperating with heaven to bring about outcomes that reflect God's glory, protection, and abundant blessings. Declaring your day blessed and divinely directed is a powerful act of faith that sets the foundation for everything that follows. Every morning presents a fresh opportunity to align your life with God's will, but so often people wake up and allow circumstances, worries, or distractions to dictate the course of their day. By intentionally declaring your day blessed, you are taking control spiritually, inviting heaven to influence every moment, and positioning yourself to walk in favor, peace, and divine guidance. Have you ever noticed how the energy and focus of the first few minutes of your day can ripple through every interaction and decision that follows? Imagine what could happen if those moments were infused with the intentional declaration that your day belongs to God. Declaring your day blessed is more than just positive thinking. It is a prophetic act that releases God's promises over your life. It acknowledges that you are not walking through life by chance or human effort alone, but under the guidance and provision of the Creator of the universe. When you speak blessings over your day, you are effectively activating spiritual authority, inviting protection, favor, and opportunity into every circumstance. Ask yourself, how often do I allow God to set the agenda of my day instead of letting the pressures of life take control? Divine direction goes hand in hand with declaring your day blessed. Blessings without guidance can be ineffective if our steps are not aligned with God's purposes. When you declare that your day is divinely directed, you are submitting to God's timing, wisdom, and insight, allowing Him to orchestrate your steps for maximum impact. This alignment provides clarity in decision-making, peace in uncertainty, and focus amidst distractions. Have you ever faced moments of confusion or indecision, only to realize later that God's guidance would have made your path smoother? Declaring divine direction ensures that you are not navigating blindly, but walking with intention and clarity. Blessing your day also cultivates an atmosphere of expectancy. By speaking life, favor, and purpose over your morning, you prepare your heart to receive opportunities, solutions, and divine encounters that might otherwise go unnoticed. Expectancy strengthens faith because it positions you to recognize and embrace God's movement in your life. The moment you declare your day blessed, You are telling yourself and the spiritual realm that you anticipate God's intervention, favor, and provision. Ask yourself, how different would my day be if I approached it fully expecting God to guide, protect, and open doors for me? This declaration impacts your mindset and emotions profoundly. When you speak blessings over your day, you are actively choosing to focus on God's goodness rather than dwelling on fear, doubt, or negativity. Your perspective shifts from limitation to possibility, from uncertainty to confidence, and from distraction to purpose. Blessing your day grounds your thoughts in truth, shapes your emotions with hope, and directs your actions toward fulfillment and effectiveness. Have you ever noticed how your mindset in the morning can determine your productivity, relationships, and decisions for the rest of the day? Declaring your day blessed also releases spiritual protection. Life is filled with unseen forces, challenges, and opposition that can influence outcomes if left unchecked. Speaking a blessing over your day invokes God's presence and shields, creating a spiritual covering that guides and protects your steps. This does not mean that challenges disappear, but it does mean that you navigate them under divine supervision, experiencing peace and confidence even in the midst of trials. Ask yourself, am I starting my day under God's protection, or am I allowing the stress of life to dictate my path? Blessing and divine direction also influence your interactions with others. When your day is aligned with God, your words, attitudes, and actions reflect His love, wisdom, and peace. You are able to respond rather than react, encourage rather than discourage, and lead rather than follow chaos. People are drawn to the presence and authority of someone whose life reflects divine alignment, creating opportunities for influence, mentorship, and positive impact. Imagine how different your relationships could be if you approached every encounter expecting God's guidance and blessing to flow through you. Declaring your day blessed strengthens your faith and reliance on God. It is a daily exercise in trust, reminding you that your life is not random or left to chance. Each declaration reinforces the truth that God is actively involved in your life, orchestrating events and circumstances for your good. This trust becomes a foundation for resilience, allowing you to face unexpected challenges with calmness, courage, and perspective. Ask yourself, am I willing to start today in full trust that God is directing my steps, or am I trying to control outcomes on my own? This practice also sets a pattern of intentionality. By choosing to bless your day and invite divine direction, you are creating a rhythm of spiritual discipline that impacts all areas of your life, your work, your relationships, your personal growth, and your decision-making. Intentional mornings lead to intentional days, weeks, and months, producing results that align with purpose and destiny rather than chance or human error. Have you considered how your daily spiritual practices shape the long-term trajectory of your life? Speaking a blessing over your day is also a declaration of authority. God has given you the power to decree and declare under His guidance, and when you do, you are actively participating in the manifestation of His will. Your words carry spiritual weight, shaping the atmosphere around you and influencing outcomes in ways that are unseen but deeply real. Each morning becomes an opportunity to exercise this authority, setting the tone for favor, protection, and peace that will follow you throughout the day. Ask yourself, am I using my words to shape my day, or am I allowing external circumstances to define it? Declaring your day blessed and divinely directed fosters gratitude and awareness. As you speak life over your morning, you begin to notice God's presence in small and significant ways throughout the day. Opportunities, breakthroughs, and moments of clarity are no longer coincidences, they are evidence of divine orchestration. Gratitude strengthens faith, and faith empowers action, creating a cycle of spiritual momentum that propels you forward. How much more fulfilled would your day be if you were consciously aware of God's guidance and blessing in every moment. This declaration also transforms your approach to challenges. Instead of reacting with fear or frustration, you face difficulties from a position of faith, authority, and confidence. Knowing that your day is blessed and divinely directed allows you to remain steadfast, make wise choices, and trust that even obstacles are part of a larger plan working for your good. Challenges no longer derail your momentum. They become opportunities for growth, learning, and testimony. Declaring your day blessed and divinely directed is a daily investment in your spiritual, emotional, and mental well-being. It shapes your perspective, aligns your actions with purpose, and sets the stage for divine encounters, favor, and provision. Each morning becomes a sacred opportunity to partner with God, ensuring that every decision, conversation, and step reflects His wisdom, protection, and blessing. By consistently practicing this, you are cultivating a life of intentionality, peace, and supernatural alignment that positions you for extraordinary outcomes. Beloved of the Lord, now is the time to take what you have heard and put it into action. Do not allow this moment to pass in silence or in routine. Today, I decree over you that every plan, every step, every encounter, and every decision you make will be aligned with God's perfect will. I speak favor, protection, and peace over your life, and I declare that doors that no man can open will swing wide for you. Every hidden opportunity, every divine connection, every answer you have been waiting for will begin to manifest in your life right now. Rise up in faith and expectancy, for the heavens are moving on your behalf. Do not be satisfied with yesterday's level. Step into the authority, the purpose, and the destiny that God has designed for you. Speak life over your day, walk boldly in His direction, and never allow doubt, fear,